Walter Hughes was at the Fast Money podium, about to answer the first question, when he turned to Steve Harvey and said in the conversational tone of a man mentioning the weather, "I should probably tell you something before we start. I have about 3 months to live. The doctors said December, and it's September, so I want to win this for my granddaughter while I'm still around to see her face." Steve Harvey's hand, which had been raised to start the round, came down slowly. The audience, which had been warm and loud, went completely silent in about 4 seconds. Steve looked at Walter. Walter looked back at Steve with the calm, unflinching expression of a man who had already made peace with the information he just shared and was now ready to play a game show. He was 74 years old. He was wearing a blazer. He had polished his shoes that morning. Steve Harvey said nothing for 7 seconds. Then he set his cards on the podium, walked to Walter, and said, "Sir, you're not playing Fast Money today. We're going to do something different." It was a Tuesday in September 2022, and Walter Hughes had come to Atlanta from Louisville, Kentucky, with his daughter Patricia, his son-in-law Greg, his grandson Derek, who was 16, and his granddaughter Lily, who was 10. They had matching royal blue shirts. Walter had worn his under the blazer because he believed a man should wear a blazer when he was on television. He was 74 years old. He had been a school bus driver for 28 years in the Louisville School District. He had driven the same route for most of those years and knew most of his former riders by name. Still, even the ones who were now 40 with children of their own. He had a reputation in his neighborhood as the man who showed up for church events, for neighbor emergencies, for the kind of steady, quiet community presence that doesn't get recognized publicly but is absolutely essential to the places where it exists. He had a stage 4 glioblastoma diagnosis that had been confirmed in July 2022. The oncologist had used the word aggressive twice in the same sentence. The treatment options had been discussed, and Walter and Patricia had sat in the oncologist's office and listened and asked careful questions, and then driven home, and Walter had said, in the car in the hospital parking garage, "Patricia, I want to go on Family Feud." Patricia had stared at him. "Lily has been talking about it for a year," Walter said. "She wants to be on it one day. She wants to know what it feels like to stand up there. I'm going to take her while I can." Patricia had called the production office the following week. The application had been accelerated. Family Feud had an expedited process for families with medical circumstances, which most applicants never needed to know existed. They were confirmed within 3 months. Walter had been in chemotherapy through most of that window. The treatment had not changed the prognosis in any material way. The oncologist had cleared him for travel. He had packed his blazer. In the green room, Walter had been the energy of the group, telling stories, making Lily laugh, teaching Derek a handshake he'd made up on the drive. He had not told any of the production staff about his diagnosis. He had not planned to mention it on the show. He had come to play, to win some money for Lily's college fund, and to watch his granddaughter's face when the board lit up. But something had shifted when he stood at the Fast Money podium. He had looked at Lily's face in the audience, 10 years old, in a royal blue shirt, watching him with the focused, hopeful attention that children bring to things they believe in, and he had thought, she should know what this is. Not the game, what this day is. So he turned to Steve Harvey and said it. The studio fell completely silent. Steve Harvey lowered his hand. He looked at Walter for a long moment, long enough that the silence had texture, weight, presence. "December," Steve said quietly. "Thereabouts," Walter said. "Could be sooner. Could be a little later. I'm not much for precision when it comes to that particular date." A woman in the front row of the audience had both hands pressed to her face. The competing family, the Mercer family from Houston, had gone completely still. Their captain, a woman named Brenda, was looking at Walter with the expression of someone witnessing something that has clarified, instantly and permanently, what matters. "Sir," Steve said. He walked slowly to Walter. He stood in front of him. "You drove from Louisville, Kentucky to Atlanta, Georgia in September during chemotherapy wearing a blazer to play a game show for your granddaughter." "Yes," Walter said simply. "How old is she?" 10. Walter nodded toward Lily in the audience. Steve Harvey looked at Lily. Lily, who did not yet fully understand what her grandfather had said, had heard it but not absorbed it, the way 10-year-olds sometimes receive information that is too large for immediate processing, was watching Steve with wide eyes. Steve turned back to Walter. "We're not playing fast money," he said. Walter tilted his head slightly. "I practiced." "I know you did," Steve said. "And I believe every answer you were going to give was correct. But today we're going to do something that has never happened in the 46-year history of this show." He held up his hand to the production booth. "Stop everything. This game is over. We're starting something else." He turned to the audience. "I want to talk to everyone in this room and everyone watching at home, because I am standing next to a man, a 74-year-old man who drove here from Louisville during cancer treatment in a blazer to make a memory with his granddaughter. And I need to tell you, I have been on this stage for 12 years. I have met extraordinary people. But I have never met someone who understood more clearly than Walter Hughes exactly why today matters." He looked at Walter. "Tell me about Lily," he said. "Tell me who she is." Walter Hughes put his hands in his pockets, the comfortable gesture of a man settling in for something he loves, and he talked about Lily. He talked about the way she did her homework at the kitchen table with the same pencil every night because she believed in that pencil. He talked about how she had decided at age 7 to become a marine biologist, and had not changed her mind in 3 years, and had started correcting people's dolphin facts at family dinners. He talked about how she called him every Sunday at exactly 4 p.m. and always opened with Grandpa. What's one thing good that happened this week? He had started looking for the one good thing specifically, so he'd have something ready when she called. The studio was completely quiet. "Every Sunday," Steve said. "Every Sunday," Walter confirmed. "Rain or shine. Chemo days, too. She called me from school once on a Sunday. I don't know how she got a phone during school. I didn't ask. Because she'd forgotten to call at 4, and it was 4:07, and she was worried she'd missed it." The audience made a sound that wasn't laughing and wasn't crying, but contained both. Steve Harvey pressed his handkerchief to his face. He stood quietly for a moment. "Let me tell you something, Walter." He looked at him directly. "I wrote a letter to my family once. I was at my lowest, living in my car, no money, no prospects. And I wasn't sure I was going to make it. And what I know from that moment and everyone since is that the people who have loved us out loud are the reason we kept going. You have given this girl 17 Sunday phone calls a year for 3 years. She has shown up every week to ask you what was good. That is the whole thing. That is the whole point of being alive." He turned to Lily in the audience. "Lily, will you come up here?" Lily looked at her mother. Patricia nodded. Lily came onto the stage and walked to her grandfather. She took his hand without being asked. Steve knelt in front of her. "Your grandpa just told me something," he said, "and I want to make sure you heard it." Lily looked at Walter. Walter squeezed her hand. "He said you call him every Sunday at exactly 4 p.m., Steve said, and that you ask him what one good thing happened that week." "Yes," Lily said. "Keep doing that," Steve said. "Whatever happens." Keep doing that. Okay? Lily nodded. Steve wasn't done. He called his foundation's legacy planning team Live on Stage and committed, in Walter's name, to a full 4-year scholarship in Lily's name, tuition, housing, and a marine biology program connection at a university of her choosing when she reached college age. He said it clearly, on air, in front of everyone. He also called Walter's oncologist's office through his medical liaison and arranged a consultation with a glioblastoma specialist at Emory, whom Steve's team had worked with before. Not to dispute the prognosis, but to ensure Walter had access to every clinical trial and comfort-focused option available. Not to fight the calendar, Steve said on stage, but to make sure every day on it counts. He announced that both families, the Hughes family and the Mercer family from Houston, were receiving the full prize package. Brenda, the Mercer team captain, walked across the stage and shook Walter's hand and said, "Sir, you are a remarkable man." Walter said, "I'm just a bus driver who loves his granddaughter." Brenda said, "Yes, sir. That's exactly what I mean." The episode aired 6 weeks after the taping. The clip of Lily coming onto the stage and taking her grandfather's hand was viewed 310 million times in the first 2 weeks, making it the most viewed Family Feud clip in the platform's history at that time. The hashtag #OneSundayAtATime trended globally for 9 days. Lily's description of the 4 p.m. Sunday call generated thousands of people posting their own Sunday call rituals with elderly loved ones. 3 months after that Tuesday, Walter Hughes was still here. December came and went. He was weaker. He was in pain that was managed with a care plan Steve's team had helped arrange. But he was here. On Sunday at 4 p.m., Lily called. He died on a Thursday evening in February, surrounded by Patricia and Greg and Derek and Lily. He had been in and out of sleep for 2 days. On the last Sunday before he died, Lily had called at exactly 4 p.m. He had answered. She had asked him what one good thing had happened that week. He had thought about it for a moment, and then said, "You called." Lily had said, "That doesn't count. That happens every week." He had said, "It counts every week." The Walter Hughes Legacy Foundation was established 3 months after his passing, funded by donations that had come in response to the episode. Donations that Patricia had not solicited and had not expected. The foundation provides college scholarships specifically for first-generation college students who have been primary caregivers for elderly or ill family members. Its motto, taken from what Lily said at his memorial, "He always had one good thing ready. He always looked for it." In its first year, the foundation awarded 24 scholarships. Lily Hughes is 12 now. She still studies marine biology with the same focused intensity she brought to it at 7. She has added a new Sunday ritual after the 4 p.m. call, which she now makes to her mother. She writes in a notebook one good thing that happened that week. She started the notebook the Sunday after her grandfather died. She has not missed a week. Steve Harvey, in a later interview, said, "Walter Hughes taught me something I thought I already knew. He taught me that dying doesn't make you stop living." He drove to Atlanta in September in a Blazer during chemotherapy because his granddaughter wanted to know what it felt like to stand on that stage. That is not a man who has given up. That is a man who has understood completely what the time is for. He paused. The one good thing that happened that week. He looked for it every week, until he couldn't. That's the lesson. Find the one good thing, every single week. Some people face the calendar with fear, and some people face it with a blazer and a granddaughter's hand, and the clear understanding that today is exactly enough. Walter Hughes understood. Every Sunday at exactly 4 p.m., for the rest of his life, someone called to ask him what was good. He always had an answer. If this story about Walter and Lily and one good thing every week moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that the most important calls are the ones we make every week, without drama, without occasion, just because someone is there and we are here. Have you ever had a ritual with someone you loved that kept you both grounded? Share it in the comments. And ring that notification bell, because as Walter Hughes proved, the most extraordinary life is often the one that finds something good in every single week.